Okay, small correction. I just went back just to make sure that what I just said was accurate. They don't actually say Gia's name. They say Melissa's family is shading the Giudice's girls. But my point still applies, still valid. We know who they're talking about in referencing. It's mostly Gia. I know last season Gabriella has been a little bit more vocal. She said something and then broke out in hives, but she didn't really say that much over the years. So I'm not really going to put her in the same, I'm on the same level as Gia because Gia has been the one who has been the most vocal and talked about her uncle and aunt. And at some point in time, too, I think it was Kim D on Behind the Velvet Rope. She was speaking with David last year, and she was saying basically that Teresa didn't have really any friends, like good girlfriends like that, and that Gia was basically appearing on the show as Teresa's friend of and getting paid for it, like $50,000. Now, I did not see the contract between Gia and Bravo or Gia and Sirens Media or NBC, but that's what Kim D said last year, that Gia received some sort of compensation for it. And that she was basically acting as Teresa's friend of. That's why we saw her quite a bit that season, showing up to Teresa's events and kind of like defending her against like even Margaret, or supporting her when it comes to her brother Joe and Melissa. Speaking of payments, okay, there's something that I wanted to bring up to you guys that kind of came to my attention because with the lawsuit that is going on, the Bethany lawsuit and all of that, there's a lot of speculations that the children are not getting paid, right? And that the husbands are not getting paid. So I don't know what is true, what's not true. Some men have come out and said, in different franchises, I'm not necessarily talking about New Jersey. Some men have come out and said that they receive compensation at the reunion just for showing up to the reunion. They receive some sort of compensation for that. Other men have said, aka, Frank and Tanya, they don't receive anything at all, right? I kind of find it hard to believe that you would be willing to put like a lot of your life out there like that and not receive any sort of compensation, but it is very possible that they do not. However, I have heard in different franchises that certain husbands do receive compensation for showing up at the reunion. So I'm not sure what is true and what is not. But when it comes to the children of New Jersey, I don't know if you guys listen to Albie's podcast. I'm not really listening to it these days, but I have in the past. And last year, Albie had his brother Chris on the show. And he was saying, I can't remember if Lauren was there, but I think it was just him and Chris, and maybe his mom was on there as well. So anyways, to make a long story short, Albie Manzo was kind of like reminiscing of the time that he was on the show and how fun it was to be on the show with his family, and how many opportunities came out of that, and how great Bravo has been to him and his family and all of that, right? So then Albie kind of said that he felt like he had like some sort, I think it was Albie or Chris, but they both shared the same sentiment. They felt like whenever a new kid would join the franchise, whether it's in New Jersey or any other franchise, they would reach out to them, kind of welcome them, kind of tell them what to expect and whatnot, that kind of stuff. And they felt like because they were basically young adults when they started with New Jersey, they feel some sort like of responsibilities trying to mentor these kids from afar, right? So I thought that was very cool of them to do that, considering that they're no longer on the show, right? But they also said that sometimes, they get together with the kids of other franchises, and it could be from the Housewives franchise, or it could even be from any of the other shows that are on Bravo. And some of those kids have kind of admitted to them that they do not receive any compensation for appearing on the show. And then they were just like, yeah, but kids do not get paid anyways. Like the kids were just like, yeah, but kids don't get paid. Just the parents are the stars. The kids don't get paid. To which Albie And Chris responded to, oh, not us. Like, not us, not all the kids, not us. We do get paid. We get a check, right? So, and I'm not talking about the time where Albie and Chris were on Manzo with children. They were specifically talking about being part of the Real Housewives of New Jersey. And I think they said something, I'm just paraphrasing and just trying to go off by my memory here, but I'm sure you can find the interview and just backtrack to sometime last year or early this year. They were talking about that. So they were even saying that they made so much money at such a young age, from being on the show, just as the sons or kids of Caroline Manzo, that at some point in time, like, they didn't really know what to do with this money because they were making so much. So they had to kind of like diversify their portfolio, whatever that means for them. I don't know if it had to do with the restaurant. Like, they had like Little Town, New Jersey, and then they had another one. I can't remember. And then they had the Blackwater. But anyways, they had money. They were receiving some sort of compensation from the network. And at, because they were so young, they were just like, oh my gosh, we make so much more money than all of our friends, right? And therefore, they didn't really see a point of trying to get a job either because of, the filming schedule and all of that, right? So I thought that was quite interesting, considering that in the lawsuit, there's a lot of people that are saying that the Bravo talent kids are not receiving a paycheck from appearing on the show. Now, another thing that, that guy, Matt, I think it's Matt Rogers, because we're speaking of kids and payments and all of that. He was recently on Melissa Gorga's podcast, On Display. Great podcast, by the way. I am forever surprised of how great of an interviewer Melissa actually is. I've said this before. I started listening to the podcast when she started last year, and I was just like, oh, let's see, let's see how it is and how it turns out. But I was very pleasantly surprised. I actually enjoy listening to her. I find that she has great guests. She has a lot of great questions. She makes it fun. Melissa has definitely a lot of talents, right? Different little talents, not just being a housewife. So anyways, I just thought that I would throw that in there in case you have not subscribed or do not listen to her podcast. I think it is very worth it. But anyways, so Melissa had Matt on her podcast a few episodes ago, and I've seen Matt on Watch What Happens Live with Andy at some point in time. And Matt, by the way, is a huge Melissa fan, okay? And I did not see the clip that everyone was talking about. I'm not sure it actually happened during that interview of Watch What Happens Live, or it may have happened afterwards. But anyways, Matt caught a lot of flack online from Teresa's supporters for going at Gia. Apparently it went really hard, right? But I've read online, a few extracts of Andy's book. And apparently Matt, when he laid into Gia, everyone on the set of Watch What Happens Live thought it was hysterical. They all thought, according to what I've read, that it was extremely funny. Andy was basically dying on the floor, dying of laughter. Everyone was cracking up. Everybody was basically having a good time because apparently whatever Matt said was a really good joke, right? I'm sorry I missed it, but I did see something online because, the backlash of it all. And I guess Matt was talking to the Teresa fans and saying, oh, you guys basically don't understand. You don't understand what's going on. Andy doesn't have a problem with what I said, what I wrote. It's just you fans. And we know that the fans of this show sometimes tend to be a little crazy, for a lack of better words, right? So anyways, I believe that's his account on Twitter. And he was saying to Melissa that he also, I think he has a podcast called Las Culturistas. I know we're not supposed to say it like that. We're supposed to just say Las Culturistas. I don't know. That's how you're supposed to say it or not. But anyways, that's his account. And he was on Twitter. And on May 11, he wrote, like, I guess it's in response to the backlash that he got. He said, "It is wrong that Teresa allows her being Gia, to get into it with Joe Gorga on camera, because he is never going to get into it with Gia," which is true. It's his niece. That's unfair. I've said that as well. I feel like it's unfair because it's never a fair fight. People are always going to just be like, oh my gosh, like you shouldn't like go after Gia, right? So anyways, so he continues and says, "Her father was the devil." Again, that's Matt saying that, not me. His words, not mine. Her father was the devil. I seem to remember him calling Teresa a "see you next Tuesday." But hey, I guess you guys are still Stan. And then he continues to say, and he's actually talking about the rant that he had on the set of Watch What Happens Live. He says, "What I said in my savage rant about Gia, which Andy thought was funny, but was worried about Teresa. If you are in full makeup for a confessional and paid and are 21 years old, you are fair game to be dragged. She is so beautiful. That is scary. Compliment." So that's what he wrote. I found that online. I thought it was interesting, given everything that is going on online right now with that podcast trying to say that, you know, the Gorga clan is trying to shade the Giudice's clan by basically saying that Antonia does not partake, you know, does not play in the mud in the same way that they do, right? And I see nothing wrong with that because, you know, she hasn't. She's been silent for all of these years. So just thought I would let you know that I would share that with you all.